Hello, everyone, and welcome to Florida-friendly and budget-friendly landscapes. I'm going to be allowing people in, so if I pause, that's probably what is going on. I'm Lily Browning. I work for Hernando County Utilities and Water Conservation. And here is my email, lillyb@hernandocounty.us. Mr. Cody, who's recording here, noticed county workers know what that email means. If it's your first name and last initial, it means you've been around a long time. So it's kind of a badge of honor for us. And also, here is my phone number, 352-540-6230. If you want to call and talk to me, that's fine. If I don't answer right away, I will call you back. I'm working from home, but a new development is they gave me my phone. So my phone is here, so I can talk to you if you have any questions or anything. But also, if you want a PDF copy of this, then please email me. Don't put it in the chat because the chat kind of goes away. I may not remember it. My email always follows me around, so I'll get you a PDF copy. We're gonna go through this presentation. First, we'll talk about the things that drain our wallets, but they also drain our time. So budget friendly is not only what you have in the bank budget, but here we're talking about your time budget as well. Things that just drain our time and our money, put it right down the storm drain like we're showing here in this picture. I'm sure many of you have been through this, buying plants to replace dead plants often. Now that's kind of part of the game. It's going to happen. You're going to, sometimes you can't avoid it. We're dealing with, living things, and sometimes they don't always make it. But if you're really frustrated and it seems like everything you buy doesn't make it, and you just wasted your time putting it down and certainly your money, that becomes very aggravating to us. Replacing turf every few years. Some of you may think that's kind of over the top, but many of you who may live in deed restricted communities where turf has to meet a certain standard, I'm not kidding with this, don't you? That, in certain circumstances, especially Floritam St. Augustine there's no way to renew it, and you just have to replace it, and that gets very expensive. Another thing that we waste money on is buying chemicals to make the plants perform better, and such as insecticides, herbicides, fertilizer, all of those things. Not necessarily wrong to do that, but you have to do it properly in order for you to get the best result. Okay. So here's some wallet and time savers. You're going to notice here, we're going to be going through the 9 principles of Florida-friendly landscaping, which is what I teach. Every time you're going to see me, you're going to see the 9 principles of Florida-friendly landscaping worked in one way or another. So, right plant, right place. I mean, that's number 1 for a reason, because that is key. And that applies to every plant. It can apply to turf. I just mentioned turf, as well as, your landscape plants. Some turf, St. Augustine, Floritam turf, it needs particular requirements but if it's in the ideal situation, it can be the right plant in the right place. In the ideal situation, usually, requires some kind of clay type water holding soil to be the ideal. But the first thing you want to start with is to know your zone. I think I mention this every single time. So we are in horticultural zone 9A. That means you can't bring your tulips and your lilacs and your peonies and, you know, things like that down with you from Ohio and expect them to work here. They're just not going to. Or your daffodils or things such as that. On the same scale, if you come down thinking you're going to go all tropical, well, then you spent your first winter here in Central Florida, and you might have, you know, first you went out and bought a coat because you didn't realize you needed to bring one with you, and then you noticed that all your plants died. So we're kind of in this middle zone called, in Florida, called Zone 9A. And that is, you need to start with plants that will thrive and do well in 9A. Getting the Florida Friendly Plant Guide, which I'm going to discuss in a minute, is a great way to start with that. And also, this is just Xeriscaping 101, putting the plants together that have like needs. You don't want to put an impatient and an aloe together. Somebody is not going to get enough water, or somebody is going to get too much. You know, that's just kind of common sense kind of gardening there. Here are ways to get one of these books. If you haven't heard me talk about this Florida Friendly Landscape Guide to Plant Selection and Landscape Design, it's free. The Southwest Water Management District prints it for us. The University of Florida's Florida Friendly Landscaping Program created it. So how do you get one of these in your hands? Well, you can download one at the Florida Friendly Landscaping website that I have posted at the top here. You can go to another website, watermatters.org. That is the Water Management District. And if you live here in Central Florida in one of their 16 counties, they kind of go down into Southwest Florida as well. Go there and look under resources for the public, and you can order one, and for free, they'll mail it to your house. So that's a great deal there. Also, you could stop by the extension office, and there's their phone number, 352-754-4433, and pick one up. I just took them 6 or 7 more boxes yesterday. So they're stocked up well. And also, if you happen to go to the Hernando County Volunteer Master Gardener Nursery, there's the address. They are open Wednesdays and Saturdays, 8:30 to 11. They have these books. That's one of the best ways to get it, because then you also get to talk to master gardeners who are very knowledgeable and very helpful. So those are the ways you can get this book in your hand if you live in one of our areas. And the top one, no matter where you live, you can always download it to your computer. And you can check with your county extension office where you are, if you are in Duval County or Brevard County or somewhere else, that they may have them available for you as well. First thing we need to do, and if you've been in several of my classes, you've heard me talk about this, we got to make a plan. We've all heard the saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. Well, I've kind of added one little letter on that and made it specific for us. Failing to plan is planting to fail. So the first thing we need to do, I mean, it's fun to run out to the store and buy pretty plants, but that is not necessarily going to result in success for you. So that'd be like buying clothes just because they're pretty, and I can buy lots of cute little clothes that are not going to fit me at all. So, you know, without knowing your size or trying them on, you know, something like that. So what the first thing you want to do is go out and look at your yard over and do a site analysis. This doesn't have to look as good as this slide. Mine sure would not. But you're gonna, you know, put the basic shape of your house and your driveway and all that. And then what you already have. You're making note of not only the features that you have, house, tree, things such as that, you know, air conditioner, you know, but also what type of conditions. Does it stay wet here? You know, kind of mark that down. Is this shady? Does it get afternoon sun? Does it get morning sun? Keep all those things in mind so that you can then work on your plant palette. Then you make a plan with a functional diagram. So we haven't even gotten into the plants we're going to use yet. You figured out what you have. Then you want to sit down and say, what do I want out of this yard? Do I want this area to be a pretty sitting area? Do I want this area to be, you know, where we barbecue? Do I want this area to be totally natural for pollinators? Is this where the dog is going to go most of the time? Is this where the kids play? You know, just put all those things down as well. And that's before you even start thinking about what kind of plants you're going to get there. That's just one of the ways to do that. Wallet and time savers also is be careful not to buy or accept as a gift invasive species. How do you know it's an invasive species? That requires, you know, some study and just from learning. And there are websites you can go to, Florida Invasive Species. It's the Center for Aquatic and Invasive Species that the University of Florida has. You might be overwhelmed if you look at that, because you'll look at that and think, oh gosh, every plant is invasive. But you know, you will get to learn. And one rule of thumb, if you're just new starting out, if it's not in here, then possibly don't get it. And just because the big box store sells it doesn't mean it's not an invasive exotic. You may be like, oh, how can they do that? Invasive exotics are put in categories, and only some of the categories have made it up to the top tiers where they are either by the state or federally or both prohibited from sale or distribution. Not all of them have made it that far yet, and therefore they can be in the store. So that requires learning from us. Also, the less turf that you have, the less money you're going to be spending on your landscape, most likely, especially on water. If you are on an irrigation system, I work for the water department. I can tell someone who, you know, follows our rules and waters once a week. I can tell that, you know, that they're doing that and they're following the rules. And they're probably going, you know, I'm just going to guess out there because different size yards and all that thing, but let's say 15 to 20,000 gallons. I did a experiment once, and I looked up a family that I know, you know, 6 people in the house. They've got little kids, and they don't bother to, you know, have their irrigation system on. They're too busy living life. All those people, they averaged about 5,000. And whereas a couple who just uses their irrigation system once a week, they're going to average 3 times, 4 times more than that. So that tells you how much water, you know, you're putting on your lawn. I wouldn't say how much water your lawn is using. Plants don't waste water. Even grass doesn't waste water. It uses exactly what it needs to use. People waste water by the amount they put on it. Also, so I took a ride yesterday around a community here in Hernando County, a very pretty gated community, and I noticed more people, I mean, by no means the majority, but more people were reducing their lawn size. So you looked at their yard and they had a whole bunch of beds and, you know, not as much lawn. So obviously that community must be allowing, you know, that to happen, that there has to be a certain percentage. I think it's 60% in that community. You have to have 60%. Right now it's St. Augustine Floritan lawn, but there's, you know, there's a movement going on, let's just say it that way, of people who are filling up that other 40% with landscape beds, and they're beautiful. They really are. So, you know, that is just another thought to think about, because once you get those landscape beds established, that you can either have them on micro irrigation or they can live on natural rainfall. Proper mowing is so absolutely key. I can't tell you how important proper mowing is. It's really the key to everything in a lawn. And that's good news because it's easy to fix. Your St. Augustine Floratam lawn has to be mowed at 3 to 4 inches. If it's mowed lower than that, which the majority of them are, that right there opens the door to take all root rot problems, just failure to thrive in general, gray leaf spot, cold tolerance goes down. All these things occur because you're mowing it too low. It was not meant, it's not bred to be mowed that low. So in most, we either have Bahia or Floratam around here, the majority of people. Bahia also wants to be mowed high. I don't think I have that on this list here, but Bahia also needs to be around 4 inches. But St. Augustine Floratam is a variety of St. Augustine, and that's the most common variety around here. It just has to be. So if you're getting your lawn mowed, go out there and get a ruler, see how high they're mowing it, and don't, keep getting someone else to do it if you have to until they agree to mow it as high as you wish. One of the things I was also looking at in this community that I was in is that we have 4 project landscapes that have put in Bahia grass to try and, because the community is saying, okay, maybe we'll see how these projects go before we allow it widespread people to get Bahia grass. And what I noticed is people are keeping it mowed nice and high, and it's looking good. It was looking really good. So the thing about that is it's so easy to fix. So that's the good news about that. And here is what your root system looks like. If you keep your lawn mowed like you think it's a putting green, you have a very shallow and very, weak root system. The roots mirror the shoots. Also, the way Floratam, its growth habit is it grows on runners, and if you look, you see there's these little growth nodes. Well, if you're mowing it that low that, well, first of all, if you're watering it too shallowly, the nodes are going to be up pretty high, and then you're mowing it so low, you're cutting into those growth nodes, and you're just doing it all wrong. Could be why, one of the reasons your lawn is so stressed. Here's wallet and time saver is to plant properly. Once you buy that plant and you take it home, if you bury it, you have wasted your money. We're not supposed to bury plants, we're supposed to plant plants. And if you see this graphic here, you want to, I use like a 1 gallon pot example. So your regular shovel, really probably only that deep as your shovel, but wider, 2.5 times wider than the root ball. And put the root ball in. If it's going to be below the soil, put more of the soil back, put it in again. You want so the soil that you dug out, what do you do with that? Well, you put it back in around the plant, and what is left over, you don't try and just pile on top of the plant. What you can do is create like a moat, a berm, to hold the water in. You don't want the natural soil right now on top of that soil ball, nor do you want mulch on top of that soil ball right now. So, it starts at the nursery when you're looking for healthy plants, but the next critical step is what you do when you get home and how you plant it. And don't, yes, there you go. Don't buy sick plants. Look for signs of disease or insects before you buy them. Stay away from the clearance cart. I know it's what we all want to do, but we got to stay away from that one. Here's a wallet and time drain. Over watering. I think I kind of hinted at that as well. That's an immediate effect if you are on a municipal water system. You know, you're paying for that water. I'm on a well. I'm not on an irrigation system, but if I were, and my neighbors certainly are, they're not paying a municipal system, but they're paying an electricity, you know, for that well to work. And we're all paying with water. I consider the aquifer, which is where all of our water is stored, I consider that like our water savings account. It is where nature has decided to store water, and it really is the best place. But we don't want to take too much out of our water savings account and, you know, overuse it. Yes, it is true with the water cycle and all that. We have the exact same water we've always had since the beginning of time. But the availability in certain areas, you know, we know more and more and more people. Last I heard was 1,000 people a day moving to Florida. That might be altered because of COVID, but I think it probably evened out because just anecdotally from what I have heard, everyone that I have heard who has left, like they've decided, I want to be closer to my kids. I don't want to live far away from them anymore. But the opposite has also occurred at the same time. This person's going north and these kids are coming down to be with their parents and move here. So there's a lot of people moving here. And also there's more people on Earth than ever. So same amount of water, more people trying to use it. We all have to keep our savings account in the aquifer as liquid as possible. This picture is taken from the county extension director. He took that picture. See, it doesn't do any good to water your sidewalk or your driveway or the street. Those things are not going to grow. They'll grow mold, and that's more work and more money for you. So adjust your sprinkler system. Go out there and check it, and not just once a year, because things happen. Your mowers may mow over sprinkler heads and you may have big old faithfuls going on there. Figure out if whoever installed it kind of installed it incorrectly, which is what happened here. They just thought, well, that's easy enough to reach all that grass, and they weren't paying attention or didn't care that it was being very inefficient on the sidewalk. Jim did fix these. He changed out the heads so it was more proper. When you get new sod, I'll talk about that as we go along. New sod's a big expense, and watering in the new sod can be a big expense as well. And irrigating improperly, such as we see here, or inefficient watering. Those are the drains on us. Let's see how we can. Here's more wallet and time drains. As I mentioned, new sod. If you're going to get new sod, that's going to cost you a pretty penny, but add in the cost of watering it in. You know, budget that into your new sod purchase. That being said, it doesn't have to be as high as it's been for a lot of people. This right here is a real bill that belongs to, you know, a person who was one of our customers, and in 2016 they got new sod. Now it's hard for you to read, but I can, you know, explain it to you here. Let's look at one. In January of 2016, they used 9,500 gallons. That's what that means. I know it looks weird. So they gave us about 20 bucks. Well, here you can see, ooh, they must have started to get new sod. And so in February, they used more than twice as much. They used 26,000 gallons. So their bill was up to 60 and they're probably, okay, yeah, well, with the new sod, I can see that. But they kept watering it in, so that in March they had used 146,000 gallons, more than 146,000 gallons of water, and their bill for us was $1,390.88. No one wants to see that. And it really doesn't have to happen that way. I've heard time and time again, well, the sod guy said just water each zone for an hour and you'll be fine. And you can get an adjustment. You can call customer service and get an adjustment on a bill like that. But you get one of those a year. So if you have a major leak during that year, you don't get an adjustment on that. That is totally unnecessary. It's a waste of your aquifer account and it's a waste of your bank account as well. That sod is new. It doesn't have any roots. It's incapable of taking up that much water. You need frequent light watering in the beginning if you have new sod. If you're going to get into that situation, please call or email me and I will email you the rules for new sod, the 60-day rules, what you're allowed to do, but also what is best for your lawn. And I followed one gentleman who did that. I know for sure he promised he followed those rules exactly. So his bill, I kept track of it, didn't look anything like this. It went up because it was using more water. Nothing like this. I don't think it even went up, not anywhere near $100. So, just be more judicious with that water, even when you have new sod. But also a problem that many of us run into, and sometimes there's nothing we can do about it if our community insists we have this type of lawn, is, you have the same sod and you put it in the same place, it's going to eventually end up with the same problem, especially if it had take all root rot. That is a fungus that lives in the soil. And therefore, you put the same plant down where that same fungus is, it's going to get that fungus as well. So sometimes if it's possible, if you're allowed to, consider, instead of putting Floritan down, maybe put Bahia down. Bahia is far less likely to get the take all root rot problem. But also if the problem is shade, if it's just too shady, no turf grass is going to do well there. And here also, remember I mentioned leaks. You get one adjustment if you're one of our customers a year, and I don't know how that works. You would have to call customer service. It's kind of complicated. But this happened to somebody who had an irrigation leak, an underground irrigation leak. See, they used quite a bit of water. Maybe they had a very big yard. So their general use was about 30,000, 25,000. And so they were paying, in the 70s, 60s. Well, once they had that leak, they used 191,000 gallons of water. And here's their bill, $2,053. Not anything anyone wants to see at all. So if you even at all suspect, you walk somewhere and it's kind of gushy there, I promise you getting an irrigation contractor out there as soon as possible is going to be far cheaper than just trying to ignore it and getting a water bill like this. So get those things fixed and, hire someone to come out once a year and make sure everything is going well with your irrigation system. You do that with your AC, don't you? You get it tuned up once a year or so. You don't just let it keep on chugging and waiting for the day it's not chugging and then it's a huge major bill and you're hot and miserable. Treat your irrigation system the same way. Keep up with it. And here's, as I said, how to save it. your irrigation system, I have some of your little squares here blocking my view of what I'm talking about here. Let your lawn tell you when to water. And how's it going to do that? How's your lawn going to talk to you? It's going to do that by its blades folding in half like this. That's one of the signs that it's trying to protect itself from the sun and conserve some water. That's one of the things that it's doing. If over 50% of your lawn is doing that, I always say it's kind of pleading with you. Please, please, please give me some water. It's not an emergency. It can wait until your next watering day if we don't have if we don't have rain in the meantime. Another thing that it'll do is if you walk across it and your footprints are still there, then, you know, for a while, then you know it's losing elasticity, it's dehydrated. Figure out when your watering day is, you know, and go ahead and put the water on then. Also, you will save a lot of money. Your landscape plants do not need the amount of water that turf does. I'd say once they're established, they're going to be just fine on natural rainfall. But you could put in a micro irrigation system or drip irrigation, something like that. Now, they don't save water, they use water. Saving water would be no water putting out, but they use a whole lot less. And your landscape shrubs, trees, they don't need the type of water that your turf needs. In fact, you'll shorten their lives by giving them that same amount of water. So that's another way of saving some time and money. Also, our lawns, your St. Augustine lawn, needs 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch per watering event. It doesn't necessarily mean once a week. If your lawn is not showing those signs I just told you, why put on the water? And how can you, I get the question all the time, how long should I put on each zone? I just got it Monday, I think. And I told them, well, there's really no way I can answer that. There are way too many variables. You know, how many zones do you have? How big is your yard? What is your water pressure? What kind of heads are we talking about? There's a really easy way. Instead of asking how long, we ask how much. And that answer is 1/2 inch. And you're going to say, how will I know that? There's a really easy way to do that. It's called a catch can test. Get you some tuna cans or something like that. Measure 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, if that's what you want, with a Sharpie. Get a bunch of those and place them randomly around in a zone. Turn that zone on. Time how long it took the cans to fill up to that mark. And turn your system off. Write down, well, that was zone 2, and that took 30 minutes. And then set each zone that way. It's not rocket science, but it probably will help you save quite a bit of water. Also, yes, please follow our watering restrictions. We're on 1 day a week watering restrictions. We have been for over 12 years. It's not going to be changing. And there are still lawns around. So follow the watering restrictions and check on your rain sensor. If you have a home since 2005, I believe, you should, by law, they had to put a rain sensor on it. But go out and check if it is actually connected, and I'm not being facetious there. We've seen it disconnected or never had been connected multiple times. But what's more common is it could be sideways or upside down. We've seen it even installed under that gutter. Not making much sense there. Or a tree limb will grow over it over time, thus not allowing it to accurately measure the rainfall. What you do with this is you set it, you're at 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, and there's a cork inside that swells up and tells the system, oh, we've had that much already. and don't turn on. There are many different types of these. There are now some that are wireless and that you can work with your phone, which would be great news for snowbirds. Also, there are soil moisture sensors, which you put in the ground, and they're a lot more efficient than the ones on the house. They're more expensive, but they're coming down in price. But they will let the system know, hey, the soil's pretty dry here. We could stand some water. Or, no, we're good. And that is a lot more efficient that way. Here are our county watering restrictions. So you go by your address. You know, if your address ends in 0 or 1, your day to water is Monday. That would be mine if I did water, but I don't. The important part is before 8 a.m. or after 6 p.m. Not and, or. And you notice I said that would be my day if I watered. But remember what else I told you a while back in this program? I have a well. Yes, it applies to me too. And why is that? Again, we go back to that water savings account, the aquifer. We're all drawing from the same account of water. So therefore, if you have a friend, brother, whoever up here in the Royal Highlands where I am, or wherever they live, and they are on a well and not on the municipal system, and you have previously told them, oh, you're so lucky you're not under these restrictions. Yes, yes, they are. Yes, we are. Some of the subdivisions now, whereas you're still 1 day a week, they may have negotiated different days for your subdivision because that's what works with your water system, still 1 day a week. So if you're in a community, Timber Pines comes to mind for sure, but if you're in a community, check with your HOA to make sure, you know, am I supposed to follow the county's days or do you have a different day for me? But it's still going to be 1 day a week. And Florida Friendly Landscaping would recommend that you water as close to that 8 a.m. time frame as possible. You don't really want to start it, sorry, at 9 and go to 2 or something like that, because it has so much more time in the dark, not able to evaporate, inviting fungus. So if it's going to take you 6 hours, you want to start it at 2 a.m., having it wrapped up at 8 a.m. Much, much, much better for the lawn. While I'm thinking of it, November 1st, what's going to happen? Our time changes. So aside from putting your clocks back and checking your smoke alarm, I want you that Sunday afternoon to go out and check the clock on your irrigation system to make sure it's up to date with the time change as well. Now, fertilizing wallet and time drains. What are some of the problems with fertilizing? Well, there's over-fertilizing, fertilizing inefficiently, using the wrong product, bagging grass clippings when you don't have to, and then having the trash man take them away. Also throwing away kitchen waste. Those are all wallet and time drains. We can address those by fertilizing appropriately with our wallet and time savers. Let your grass clippings just go back in the lawn. There's so many mulching mowers out there now, and that does not cause thatch. What causes thatch is overwatering, and you have a shallow root system, almost a hydroponic lawn, and all those runners just keep growing high, creating like a thatch-like area. Grass clippings don't do that. In fact, they're going to disintegrate pretty quickly, but in so doing, they're pretty much, well, they're about 90% water, but they have enough nitrogen in them that if every time your lawn is mowed and you just let them fall to the ground, The University of Florida says you can skip one of your fertilizations each year. And it's free, and it's easy, and it's simpler to do. Also, you know, ask, why am I fertilizing? Well, what's the reason? Am I fertilizing just because it's this day on this calendar? That's not the reason to fertilize. You fertilize because the plant you are looking at is needing something. So first, find out if that plant, like the lawn, is needing something. And you can call the county extension office at the phone number I gave you at the beginning. It's 352-754-4433 to ask about getting a soil test, and they'll be glad to walk you through that process. Find out what you need before you just put down stuff. Also utilize compost. What do I mean by that is, this is a new and upcoming thing too, and the one gentleman whose water I tracked, who got new sod, he did something else new and different and fun. Before they put that sod down, they got some commercial compost and placed it down on the soil first. And that really helps in our sandy soil. It's not going to stay there forever. We're not up north like where you can amend the soil and it's going to be good and amended for 5 years. No, it's, you know, our microbes are always alive and always eating all that great stuff. But it does help, does really help improve the nutrient holding and water holding capacity of the soil. So after a couple of years with the new sod, what you want to do is take that same commercial compost. There are different companies you can call around and ask if they do that, and sprinkle around like fertilizer, like top dressing your lawn with it. Will also then help it seep in and continue to benefit the lawn. We want you to avoid weed and feed products. Now that guy, I know he's really cute. I mean, you know, feed it, he's really cute, but weed and feed products don't work, at least not in Florida. We have an ordinance, which I'm going to go over with you, that would negate on its own the time frame of when you want to put down a weed killer and when you want to fertilize. In Florida, it's just, even without an ordinance, doesn't work out. You want to try and get those spring weeds in spring. Have a good time figuring out when that might be. As I'm going to guess mid-February. You know, you want to put that down to get a pre-emergent to stop those weeds from ever coming up. That's way before you're allowed to, or before you even should fertilize. So it's just not going to work out time-wise. Another issue that has occurred quite often in Florida is you have non-target casualties in the weed and feed war, meaning a palm tree, an oak tree, some shrubs, because the herbicide, you know, got through the ground and into the roots of those other and it's not a grass, it's a broadleaf. So the weed killer sees it as a weed and it kills it out. So that's just something we recommend you avoid. Now the turf fertilizer, the fertilizer, this is a class unto itself, and perhaps I'll get Dr. Lester to present another one of those, but just some basics about the bag, what you're looking at, that 1648, that those three numbers are always going to be NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Almost forgot there for a second. And there are different rules that the University of Florida suggests. You always want to get as much slow release, at least 50% or more slow release. And it's all very complicated. So it's best to consult the extension office or a master gardener before you just go put fertilizer out there. And the one main thing I want to leave with you is the label is the law. Don't put more than the label says. It's just not going to work out for you. Here is very specifics in how to use a spreader. I'm not going to get into it in the interest of time, but like I said, if you want to read all of this, you can email me and ask for a PDF so you can see exactly how we suggest you use a spreader. Sometimes you're going to have a real checkerboard looking lawn if you don't do it correctly. And we want you to use a deflector shield so you're not wasting it on the sidewalk where stormwater runoff could come and take it to the nearest waterway. You got to be real careful. Sometimes the spreaders, you know, it's supposed to be a slow release, or at least 50% slow release nitrogen, but the spreaders can break open the coating and let that nitrogen out faster than it would have naturally just kind of broken down. So it's a science, fertilizing is. Here is our ordinance, as I mentioned. So January 1st through March 31st, homeowners are not allowed to apply nitrogen to, or fertilizer, to their lawns. This is how it exists right now. There's talks of perhaps it changing, but I'm not going to look for that anytime immediately. And also, when it does change, don't look for it to be less strict. That's not the kind of talks they're talking about. They're talking about kind of tightening up on it. So as a homeowner, that's the time frame you can't put fertilizer down on your lawn. Can you walk into the big box store and buy fertilizer? Absolutely. Maybe that's one of the things they're trying to tighten up on, if we can legally get around that so it wouldn't be available. But there's no need to fertilize then. Your lawn is not actively growing. If you get University of Florida publications, it might tell you start around March 15th. So you can wait 2 weeks. That's not going to damage your lawn at all. Professionals are allowed to put down that slow release only. It has to be 50% or more slow release nitrogen. And the reason we did that is, they did that is because, again, I mentioned March 15th, you know, you might want to get started. So they have so many to do. I wanted to give them extra time to get all of their, you know, all of the fertilizing done for everybody that they have to do. So it kind of gave them that extra 2 weeks. Dr. Lester, I've heard him say, if you have somebody who's actually putting down nitrogen and fertilizer on your lawn before mid-March, fire them. There is just no reason to do that, and it's not good for your lawn. There are year-round portions of the ordinance. You can't fertilize within 10 feet of a body of water. If you have just planted something, wait 30 days. That includes sod. All the plants are very stressed from being transplanted. Fertilizing them is only going to stress them more. They need to concentrate on getting established. You don't need to push them into grow, 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 grow. That's not what they need at that point. If it's going to rain within a 24-hour period, the big heavy rain, don't apply the fertilizer. You're going to be wasting money that way. Also, it'll all just wash away into the nearest waterway or leach down into our aquifer. And if you have a spill, please don't hose it down. Sweep it up, put it back in the lawn, in your spreader, in your bag, something like that. Over mulching, and I just saw this. I don't have the picture that I took about a week or so ago on here, but it was very similar to the one down here on the bottom left, and we see it all the time. And I saw it kind of in a place that maybe should have known better. Remember I talked about don't bury your plants? It's doing the same thing, just burying them above ground. But to the plant, it makes no difference. And that's a waste of your money. Look at how much more of that mulch you could spread in other places. So you could spread out your, you know, your purchase. If you do this to new plants, the roots are going to start growing the wrong way, trying to find some oxygen, and you're going to have a very weak tree, shrub, whatever it is. And never in any age tree do you want it right up against the trunk, because that's going to hold fungus right up against the trunk. Also, what you see on the bottom left here, that's going to eventually form like a thatch. So then you will have an umbrella effect, shedding the water away from the plant. So 2 to 3 inches, and pull it away from the trunk of the plant. And we want you to use organic mulch, which means something that was once alive. Avoid rubber mulch, avoid rocks. That's just, the rubber mulch could be adding bad things to our soil. The rocks aren't adding anything except heat. And I'm a rock lover, so I use them decoratively and for borders and things like that, but not as an entire mulch. Cypress mulch, whereas you would think, well, that's the cheapest mulch I can buy, that's saving money. This is where it comes to, you know, making good choices with your money, and it's just not a sustainable practice. They go into the wetlands, cut down young baby trees, shred them up, put them in bags to sell to us as mulch. And Florida Friendly Landscaping doesn't recommend that non-sustainable practice. And I happen to like the big chunky, like the pine nuggets, because they're going to last longer, have more mechanical, you know, shading out of the weeds and things like that. So that's a cost saver for me. And mulch properly. You can over mulch just like you can overwater and be just as hazardous for your plants. Utility mulch, that's a, you know, free way to get some mulch, but I would be very, very judicious and careful with that. If you've got somebody cutting down some trees and you ask them for the mulch, don't put it down immediately. That has to season. It's hot because they cut down live trees. Also, you don't know what you're getting. Their job is to keep the trees away from the power lines, or, you know, make it safe to see around the corner when you're driving, something like that. They're not going to pick out the invasives. They're not going to pick out the invasive vines. So be very, very careful about that kind of thing. But why we mulch, other than it looks nice and neatens up our yard, is it does add organic material to the soil. We want it, that's why we want something that was once alive. So it does help improve, again, that nutrient holding and water holding capacity of our soil. If you're worried about it being up against the house, pull it away 8 inches or a foot from the house so it's not right up against it. There are termites out there in your lawn, whether you have mulch or not here in Florida. So just maybe keep it away from the base of the house. More wallet and time drains. This is where we're going to talk about attracting wildlife. But one big old monoculture of just grass, and also a sterile landscape where nothing is left living in it, or total reliance on commercial products like bird seed and things like that to feed the birds that you want to come. Also, this is just one of my things I find funny, the people who go out of their minds, lose their minds over squirrels getting in their bird feeders. To me, and I know somebody told me, well, the bird feed is expensive. Well, there are ways around it. And to me, I'm like, you know, build a bigger table, don't build a wall. So you can have those store-bought ways to feed the wildlife. If you want to attract them to a particular area where you can sit and enjoy them, that's fine. But the rest of your yard, plant the type of plants that are going to bring them. That's what they would eat in nature. They're not, you know, they're not going to go out, honey, will you go to Walmart and pick up some bird seed? They're going to look for the plants that have berries and that have seeds, and they're also going to be looking for insects, and they're going to be looking for small reptiles, and, you know, your bees are going to be looking for the flowers. So if you provide those, that will also help the wildlife. And one way to do it is native plants are always going to bring you wildlife. Just always, always. The more native plants you have, the more wildlife you're going to attract. If you And also diversity, that'll be my next slide. I'll talk about that in a second. You can provide a water source for the critters in your yard, but make sure you're not providing it for the mosquitoes in your yard. And the way you do that is, if you have a bird bath, make sure you're out there every 4 or 5 days. If you can't dump it, then just, scrub it out and hose in new fresh water, so you get rid of any larvae that the mosquitoes have. If you are a part-time resident and you want a bird bath, drag it in when you're gone, or turn it upside down or something, so that you may have left, but you left some great mosquitoes for your neighbors all summer. You don't want that to occur. Here's what I was talking about. Diversity is going to bring your wildlife. Diversity is always a good thing. And in the plant world, more than just, oh, I've got grass and one bush, one type of bush, and a palm tree. The more types of different plants you have, the healthier yard you're going to have, but also the more wildlife. So not only the diversity of different species of plants, but also different sizes and different heights, so that you're also providing cover for them. And pesticides and trying to attract wildlife just aren't going to work out together at all. And if you want pollinators, just plant a butterfly garden, and you're going to end up with the pollinators as well. Another thing you can do, if you can, in your community, if you're allowed, have some areas that are no mow areas. I have I have half an acre, the whole back quarter acre is pretty much like that. It's not that I never mow it, it's that a good part of the time I let it grow. And what I just did over the weekend, because I had that Spanish needle and all kind of wonderful things going on everywhere, but it was looking a little bit raggy. So I took the mower and I just mowed a walking path through it, so I can walk and enjoy all the pollinators. If you have a dead tree and you have a very big area where that tree is not going to fall and hurt a building or anything, leave it. Oh my gosh, all the wildlife that it attracts to those dead trees, which we call snags. Also, a brush pile. There you go. You don't have to clean up the brush pile. If you're in a community that will allow you to get away with that, because it's going to bring lots of wildlife to you as well. The last thing we're going to cover is pesticides. The use of pesticides, using the wrong product, intolerance of any bugs whatsoever in your yard, and encouraging the disease triangle. Here is the disease triangle, and we're so very well aware of that right now for ourselves, but it applies to plants as well. How does a disease take hold? First of all, you got to have the pathogen. It exists. Then you need a host. So COVID-19, humans. Then you need the favorable environment, which would be, close to people or getting close to the viral droplets, things such as that. So, and a plant is the same way. If you break anything in this cycle, the disease can't live. So you need, to think about that. And usually, well, the two things we can control are the environment or the host. Don't have that plant if it continues to be a problem, or change its environment so it's not as favorable to the pathogen. Again, buy those healthy plants. The way I handle most problems is I just prune them away. So be out there scouting, looking around. If something looks bad, prune it away and throw it away. I hate to go to the store and have to buy an insecticide, but if you do so, make sure that you get the right product for the right problem. What I'm showing you here is, this is an oleander caterpillar. It's going to change into this polka dotted wasp moth. Not a wasp, just shaped like one, doesn't sting you. But this oleander caterpillar, can you take a wild guess what it likes to eat? So if you have a plant, if there's a bug named after a plant, and you have that plant, real high likelihood you're going to get that bug. So, you know, you can make choices, maybe like, if you really don't want to deal with it, don't have an oleander, or at least know, oh, I'm going to have the oleander caterpillar. All that he really does is make it look ugly. It doesn't hurt it in any way. Is this true or false? The only good bug is a dead bug. I know lots of people who think that's true, but you know, we wouldn't be alive without insects. So that is false. If you feel, you know, it is time that you have to treat something, we recommend this integrated pest management. And it starts with prevention. Said if you want to prevent oleander caterpillars, you know, don't have oleanders. And then cultural sanitation. When I say I prune things off, I don't let them just drop on the ground. I take that diseased area, then I wrap it up and throw it away in my trash. I don't even put it in the compost because I don't want to spread that around. Physical, that's what I'm doing, cutting it off. Mulch is a physical or mechanical way of trying to shade out weeds. Biological, that doesn't mean go out and buy ladybugs from somewhere else to try and help your yard here. Nature has everything it needs. It takes care of itself. So if we don't kill out everything in our yard, usually our allies are going to be helping us and we're going to save a lot of money. If we kill off everything, then we've killed off our friends as well as our foes. If you get to the point where you decide you do need a chemical, consult with someone who knows what they're doing so you get the right chemical for the right problem. Okay, as I talked about, let the good guys, you know, let them go to work for you. Our allies. Get to know, is this a good bug or a bad bug, or what we consider a good bug or a bad bug, and get the right product for the right problem. So first you got to have the problem diagnosed to know what you should get for it. And also learn to tolerate imperfection. Got to have some bugs around or you're not going to have that wildlife around that we discussed. I have a few other little tips here before we go. You want to avoid overcrowding of plants. It's tempting in the beginning when your plants are small to smush them all together, but remember they're going to grow. Consider mature size. And not everything all the time is all about the flowers. Make the basis of your yard be about the foliage and the greenery, and make that attractive with different textures and different shades and all those fun things. Foliage is fun too. As far as your trees go, it is more cost efficient, almost, you know, the same way it's more cost efficient to hire an irrigation contractor to come out once a year, get an arborist to come out, not when a storm is zooming down upon us, because good luck trying to reach him then, but throughout the year so that they can evaluate your trees and keep them in good health for you. An arborist, not Bob who knocked at the door. You know, get someone who really knows what they're doing. You can look up the International Society of Arboriculture, and they actually have a search. You can put in your zip code and find the certified arborists in our area. And be well worth the money to do that. And some other tips. Again, I said, provide that foliage, that greenery. Lloyd Singleton is what used to be an extension agent in Sumter County, and he's gone up to North Carolina, but his saying is still green is a color too. So don't make it all about the flowers. Provide that basis. And also don't be afraid to go big, like on this left corner, in this left picture here. See, that's a pretty big plant, but it fills up the space perfectly. Just make sure it's not going to be one that's going to overgrow the area. And make use of things that aren't plants in your yard to accent the plants. Anything that isn't a plant that's part of your landscape, we refer to as hardscape. Paths, decks, benches, chairs, all of these things. Be creative with that hardscape, and then, you know, work the plants around it. And also at the store, or whoever you have working in your landscape. We get intimidated by them, don't we? We get intimidated because, you know, they tell us, well, we know what we're doing. But remember, I say who writes the check? Probably not many people anymore. Who hands over that credit card, or, you know, who has it taken out of their account? Who's paying for it? You are. What does that make you? That makes you the boss of the situation. And I'm not saying to be obnoxious, but, you know, it's your yard. You're the boss. It's your money you're spending at the store. So therefore, you know, when you're at the store and they're not buying the plants that you want, they don't have hardly any native plants, I wouldn't bother the poor cashier who has nothing to do with it. But, you know, email corporate, email them enough to say, I really wish you didn't have these invasive plants and you had more native plants. Also with your landscapers, your lawn guys, I'm mowing and you're not mowing 4 inches. I'm telling you this is 2 inches. Until you find somebody who's going to do it the right way, because, you know, you're the boss. As I just said, right to the corporations at the stores. And there are people out there who can help you. So educate yourselves. That's what you're doing here. You're educating yourself. Don't fall for quick fixes. Always remember if it sounds too good to be true, the Extension Office is a great place to go for advice. They are the University of Florida has Extension offices in every county in the state. This is the one in Hernando. Their phone number, give them a call. They're going to give you research-based information without trying to sell you anything. So look for the right advice in the right place. Your barber might have great advice about how to cut your hair, not necessarily great advice about what to do in your yard. You know, so keep those things in mind. And if we can find any information on the web, right? Is it correct information? Well, that's another story. So what I suggest is you can Google and every search, if you're here in Florida, with UF for University of Florida, so that you bring up one of their thousands of publications. Like say you're looking up crepe myrtle. You can put in crepe myrtle, either IFAS, but that's harder to remember. That's the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. In other states, that's called the College of Agriculture. So either put in IFAS or put in UF to find the information that you're looking for. Sometimes when I want to even expand, I'll just put in EDU. I'll put in like crepe myrtle EDU so that I know I'm getting some land-grant university's information. Be careful with that because Florida is very specific, but sometimes Clemson's or University of Georgia or, you know, Louisiana, something like that will have some great information, even Texas. But be careful that it still applies to Florida. Penn State, Cornell, they're great, but their information is not going to be, you know, for you here in Florida. We do have classes coming up next Wednesday, again, 10 a.m. right here, same place, will be dangers in the garden. Since we're getting into October and kind of getting, you know, in a kind of spooky feels for it. So we're going to be talking about dangers in the garden and how to garden safely. Then the following week, I won't be around. I'll be leafing you. Going to Pennsylvania to see some grandkids. So yes, I'll be leafing. But I'll be back in time for the day before Halloween. But this is going to be pre-recorded with a guest narrator who I think you'll enjoy very much. So it'll be available at that time, but you won't be able to, you know, to participate live with it. But we're going to talk about spooky gardens. We're going to talk about dark plants, ghostly bloomers, carnivorous plants and also plants with a spooky history. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Then on when, pay attention to that because that's pre-recorded and it's a Friday at 10 a.m. Then we'll be back on our Wednesday schedule at 10 a.m. Florida Friendly Landscaping for the part-time resident. So if that's you or that's one of your friends, make sure that you have them join us. Okay, let me see if I can stop sharing for now. Let's see if we have anything in the chat. Lisa's asking if these slides are available to download. Let me put my, oh yes, thank you. Priscilla answered. Thank you very much, Priscilla. My email is there, lillyb@hernandocounty.us. Email me and ask for a PDF. That's the best way to get that. What are some examples of dangers in the garden? Overheating, poisonous plants, poison ivy, sharp plants, not using equipment properly. It's been a couple of years since I've done that one, so I'm going to have to look over, but that's kind of, what we're going for as well. Okay, if there isn't any other chat, I thank you all for joining us. And I thank Rick Fody, who's been hiding in the background, making this available on Hernando County Government Broadcasting's website and on channel 644 if you have Spectrum cable in here in Hernando County as well. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a good day, and I will see you next week.